Ready? Look at that lovely little gallop that it does, a little funny little waddle along the floor. He's picking up mud. He's been at a small little pan on the right of us, and up he flies. Let's see if we can get where he's busy doing something up in the tree. So they come down, they gather quite a little bit of mud, and then up he goes. Can we? First a bit low down. We're hoping we're going to get this shot for you. There it is. Now what by chance is it doing? Okay, so what that individual is doing is it's busy muddying up a hole. In this big leadwood tree, I know Tristan was talking about it yesterday, it's busy taking mud from the ground and then cementing closed a hole in a tree, which it then intends to seal his wife inside. And once the wife is inside, it seals this perfect little sort of V shape like that in the tree, which enables it to just put its beak inside. So that's a very good adaptation for birds that live in this environment, that the female will go inside the nest. Now, first of all, it's quite a dramatic event because the female needs to be wooed by the man over a period of time. And we spoke just now about the swarms of insects. This male will come to the female with many gifts, what we call nuptial gifts. He'll come with a grasshopper, and he'll come with a praying mantis. He'll come with various amounts of insects and feed her. And what she's doing is she's ascertaining whether he is a good provider of food. Okay, and now with that wonderful provider of food, then she's willing to go inside of that hole where he'll cement her into that little cavity there, and only his beak can feed her inside. Now it's a gamble because she goes in and she loses all her feathers. Now if a bird loses all its feathers, what happens? Yes, it can't fly, so she can't feed herself. She would be able to break out of there if she needed to, but he's cemented her inside and he's the sole provider. So if he dies, he gets eaten by a predatory bird, she's probably going to die inside. So she waits inside there, incubating the eggs, and he comes back and feeds us. Okay folks, we're going to quickly cut back to Taylor, who's got some lions for you up in the north, and we're going to continue on. We've had something on the radio we'd like to probably pick up and see if we can catch up on that, and we'll give you an update when you come back, but we'll be back in touch. Enjoy the north.
Well, we've kind of got a scene from The Lion King at the moment, and if there's ever been a lion that's resembled Mufasa, here it is. Look at this spectacle. This is what we've been waiting for all afternoon, and we've finally got it. I'm so glad we went on a little bumble, because we could have sat with the lions, yes, we would have watched them sleep, and we wouldn't have seen all the elephants, and then I've forgotten now all the other animals that we've actually seen already this afternoon. But how great is that? So what I want to do though is I want to do a quick reposition, because I want to get directly underneath them so we can completely get the golden light. And I know that there's one of the guides from Silas here who'd want to do exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to quickly take a wide berth, because you know, 355 million point turn otherwise. Oh my goodness, it honestly doesn't get better than that. I'm just moving a little bit further ahead so that the other vehicle can get the same view that I'm kind of going for, because I did see some big cameras on there. Whew. You know what? I'm going in for an illegal maneuver. Find me. My camera will focus, but that's too great not to take a picture. And now, for those of you that were wanting a new screensaver for 2018, almost said 2017, there should be a fine if you say that. Here we go. Yeah, here's your opportunity. Now I'm waiting for the perfect moment to do my illegal maneuver. He needs to look at us. Everybody, wait, don't press, I don't know what buttons you press to even take a screen grab on a computer. How hopeless am I? But whatever buttons you are going to press, you need to do it when he looks directly at us, so we can get that beautiful glint of light in his eyes. There we go. Now open your eyes wide, big boy. Say cheese. I have to change a few things. Wow. There we go. I'm done now. We can go home. That's amazing. You don't often get a shot like this. I can count on my hands how many times I've had the blue sky as the backdrop for a lion, especially with his mane blowing just like that, and in the golden light and on beautiful black rocks. Wow, wow, wow. And I believe you're all sending in your screenshots. I'm very proud. Very, very proud. Thank you so much. I look forward to looking at them tomorrow when I'm back in the triangle and back at camp, at base camp, where the signal is better than it is on the side of the reserve. That is truly spectacular. And you wouldn't think that rocks could, well, take away from a big male lion. But it just goes to show, though, how amazing these creatures are, and then how big the rocks are, too. You don't really get an idea. I mean, whole Pride would come and join him up on here. However, they've got a plan of their own, and they seem to be sitting down on the other side. And the light is only going to get better and better, which is really cool. Wow, wow, wow. Right, I'm going to send you very quickly down to South Africa, and the reason why I'm going to send you there quickly, because it seems as though James has found a falcon of sorts. I'm not sure which one, but he'll tell you.
Righty, here we do not have a leopard in a tree, but a bird in a tree. Many birds, many of the same birds. They are, of course, falcons. Little falcons. I do like the word falcon. I'm not sure why I like it. It makes me feel like it's a powerful word for some powerful birds. Except, of course, these birds, not the most sort of robust falcons there are in the world, on account of the fact that they pluck termites from the air, largely. That's what they eat. Now, naturally, I can never remember. No, I can remember. Sorry, I didn't used to be able to remember. These are called Amma falcons, and they are quite closely, or often closely, associated with red-footed falcons. Used to be eastern and red-footed kestrels, which obviously I was unable to ever remember. But if you look very carefully here, you might be lucky enough to see a male or female red-footed kestrel. Now let me just see if I can see this. I can only see Amma falcons there. The red-footed ones have got a sort of, how should we describe it? I can show you a picture rather than trying to describe it. Let me get my book out. Oh. A question from Mystic Gohad. What is a Mystic Gohad when it is not at home is what I want to know. Mystic Gohad, you want to know if they have migrated? They have indeed migrated. They've come all the way, as their name would suggest, Amma, from Siberia. Some of them all the way from Siberia, a little bit like Alex, our technical genius. He's also from Siberia. Well, he's not. He's from Russia. And what you will find is that they've come all the way from there, and they are on this page. Where are they? Where? There they are. Okay, so go there. You are. You're already there. Well done. There is the Amma falcon. That's what we're looking at there. Lots of males and females and juveniles. And here is the red-footed falcon. That's the one there. And so you'd be looking for very grey bird for the male with a little sort of rufous bottom. The male eastern redfoot, it's now the Amma falcon, of course, has also got the red bottom, but he's got a much lighter grey to the rest of the body. So those are the Amma falcons and the red-footed falcon. So the idea, of course, is always to try and find a red-footed falcon in amongst a large flock of Amma falcons, which have come, like I say, from the Palearctic up in Siberia, northern parts. Sometimes as far as Vladivostok, which of course is enormously far away. trying to see again if I can see any western red-footeds. I keep missing the name, I'm afraid, but a question there about whether or not they always travel in flocks. They do, these chaps. The red-footed not quite as often, but these chaps will almost always fly in flocks. Yeah, I don't think there are any red-footed falcons amongst that bunch. It's quite a thing to watch them feed when they get... that's from Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. It's quite a thing to see them get in amongst a large swarm of termites. Because what they do is when they catch their prey, they catch them on the wing with their feet and then lift their feet to their beaks as they're flying and then carry on catching them. And Senzo actually was just asking me, we saw a flycatcher, and he basically said to me, how on earth can a flycatcher get enough flies to eat in a day? And of course, the answer is they have to eat a huge number of them, and there are a huge number of them around the place. But you can imagine for a bird of this size, or very well for a flycatcher, but for a bird of this size, they must be doing a huge amount of hunting in the sky, trying to grab as many insects as possible. I'm just going to check that insects are the only thing they eat, because it is entirely possible that they have a slightly more Catholic diet than that. Mainly insects such as grasshoppers and termite alates, occasionally small birds. Let's see if we can get a little bit more detail on that. Oh, this is fascinating. Now, Parlin, you want to know what these birds will eat in Siberia. Parlin, they will probably eat... I was trying to think of something quick and facetious to say. It was a bit Russian. You know, like they seek out vodka patches or something like that. But it didn't really work, did it? They eat the same sort of thing that they do here, because, of course, they're there in summer, and there's huge blooms of insects that come out during the summer months there. Now, I'm just going to read to you quickly. It says from perch by hovering, which we know, also in the air, particularly when insects are swarming. But this is the interesting bit. Average greater than 20 strikes per hour, with a strike success rate of about 50%. So they will try and catch 20 insects an hour with a strike rate of about, that's interesting, of only 50%. So they'll basically catch 10 insects an hour, which in a 6-hour feeding period gives you only about 60 insects a day. So they're obviously catching much bigger insects than something like a swift or a flycatcher. I'm hearing thunder, which is a bit scary. You know, some of those swifts will eat... Oh, they're up. Look at them fly. Isn't that fantastic? And they're going back towards the tree now. They're all going to roost again, maybe. Let me see if I can take an illegal photograph. Beautiful, isn't that stunning? Oh, that's wonderful. Wonder why they took off there. I think it was probably the thunder, you know. Very cool. Now, I was just quickly finished what I was saying. Some of those swifts, I believe, can catch, you know, sort of hundreds of insects a day. Okay, we're going to go back to the Masai Mara now, to the maned Taylor McCurdy with Mufasa.
Faith, did you enjoy that there? It sounded like you were giggling at James's link of me being the maned McCurdy. Yes, especially when I haven't had a haircut in a while. Or if I stick my finger in an electrical socket, then I can kind of match this lion's mane. But he's done now. He's had enough of everybody taking pictures of him. He's decided he needs a rest because it's very difficult being a model. So tough. I had to walk all the way up that hill, and now I'm just going to take a nap. Right, and on that happy note, what we're going to do is I'm going to make you even happier this afternoon. And we're going to go and look for those cubs that have come out. And I'm going to try. Hopefully the gremlins don't get us. Ah! If we don't roll first. Oh my goodness, I don't know what I was rolling into, but we were They see me rolling. That's what was happening. Okay, there's a little step here. We just go down it and then we'll go to the cubs. Oh, there's not a lot of vehicles there either, which is quite nice. Sorry, I'm just concentrating on the road. Lots of rocks. Right, thank you very much to that male lion, right? That is probably the most beautiful male lion I've ever photographed in my life. Obviously it was a combination of different things, but now that he's gone to sleep, let's go see what else is happening. And I think we could be in for a good time today. Hi Cheryl. Cheryl, you said, do I think that some lions have, a self-awareness? Because you said some of them are, perfect and others are banged up. I don't necessarily by choice. I think most of the time it just happens, depends on their life experience. Obviously the more battered up ones means they've been in a lot more arguments, or they're not very good fighters. And I don't know, I feel like this boy doesn't get into a lot of arguments. I feel like he just sort of sits around and says, oh no, I'll give this bar fight a skip, thank you very much. I'm going to just check the men's room, and then runs. No, I'm just joking. I don't know what he does, but he does look like a bit like a pretty boy, doesn't he? So no, I don't necessarily think so. I think it's just different walks of life, different experiences, different encounters. Obviously, some lions might be prone to having arguments, kind of like with people. You know, some are more feisty, some are more aggressive. Look at the Mapojos. They used to go out and search for trouble all the time, but they would win. They know they would win. There were so many of them. So yeah. The prettiest lion I've ever seen is the one that I've told you about, Mondoro, which is he's down in the Eastern Cape. He's a Kalahari black-maned male lion. He's beautiful. He's not got a scratch on his face, and he's gorgeous. Big black mane, but big mane. Not quite as large as Scar's. Look at this. I just want to show you very quickly what's going on over here, and then we'll sit with these little cubbies for a bit. And I'm just going to sneak on in here. I'm just going to stop like this because this car will have to reverse out eventually, and I don't want to block them in. Oh, they're so cute. Look at them. Okay, well this is just a sneak peek because the light is only going to get better. So I'm going to send you across to Ralph for a very quick update to see what he's up to and if he's found anything. And then I'm sure you'll eventually come back to me.
Thanks, Taylor. Well, it seems we haven't moved anywhere, but what we have found is that these female lionesses are just getting a little bit more snoozy and dozy by the minute. And every now and then they do all of a sudden look like they're all interested. There's a little bit of half interest. But if Taylor's calling that male lion Mufasa, then we'll have to call this one Saravi. I think it was Saravi or Sarevi from the female that was Mufasa's girl in Saravi. That's what everybody's saying. So we'll call her that, and that's her one of her minions there in front, because she looks like the more royal of the two, I would say. You can also see those very black lips that Taylor was talking about. Very important for the sun. All the African mammals, it'd be very important for them to have melanin in the skin of area that is exposed to the sun. A very nice example being that of the giraffe's tongue. And you see how they're getting a little bit more alert now. And that's this watching and waiting game that we've been playing for the last couple of days now, isn't it, folks? And we've had some very good payoff with that initial cheetah hodari, with that young bushbuck in the thicket. And then this afternoon Now, Matt, you're wondering if the Namibian lions are a lot more lanky because of their territories or the area that they need to cover being much bigger than, for instance, here in the Mara. Their body shape is different. They're not as bulky as these lions are, and with them covering massive distances as well, they almost look like long-distance runners. So it's quite interesting to note that their body mass is definitely less. They're probably drinking less, eating less, and covering much bigger distances than these lions. So if you had to pick these lions up and plonk them in Namibia and take those lions and plonk them here, I think my money's on the Namibian lions doing a bit better because they're used to surviving with less resources. And I think these lions would probably struggle over there. But they probably both struggle with the change in the environment like that because they're so well adapted. And it's quite similar, the same with the elephants. They're also very adept at traveling massive distances and not drinking for a few days and not feeding for long times of those days as well. And then they also know which kind of bulbs and roots to dig up at different times of the year that are going to give them very good nutrition over that time. Whereas I think the elephants here, they just moved to the Mara Triangle now, and everybody's flocking to get into the marsh where they've got that lovely grass. So, folks, it's always a little bit difficult when you've got cats that are flat, but we've seen what's happened from flat cats to mobile cats within seconds, so we are staying here a little bit longer, but we'll go and send you all the way down to James for an update.
Hello, we're back again. We've left the Amur falcons. Senzo and I have been speaking in Russian accents, bad ones, ever since, and finding it quite amusing, and imagining a Russian such as Alex telling us in his Russian accent that we are not very amusing at all. And he'd be entirely justified in doing that, of course. Alex, by the way, doesn't sound Russian. Well, he does slightly, but not anything like not anything like the way I've been taking him off. Right, I just saw a squirrel jump into the tree, and given the... Ooh, it's a baby squirrel, Senzo. And as they say, beggars cannot be choosers. There's another baby squirrel on the ground there. It is running away. There it is. An inexperienced little squirrel. Tree squirrel, not being very arboreal. And above my head, the call of the Cape glossy starling. But not, in fact, visible. Okay, on we go. We've done sort of a trip past the old den sites of Thandi. No tracks or anything, so I suspect she probably moved out of the area that she was in yesterday. Well, Tristan went past her this morning, of course, and we won't pick up tracks because we've had rain between then and now. So she really could be anywhere. I don't think she's moved the den. I'm not sure why she would have. I think she's probably out hunting. She's probably killed something in the wind and is sitting replenishing her nutrition. Let me go up this way. We'll go off towards Beefleshoek Dam and see what we can find there. Senzo just telling me that the signal is not great here, which of course it isn't, so we must just be careful. There's a dove. Diaz, you're wondering about how Thandi makes sure the cub doesn't follow her. Sorry, I'm just listening to the radio quickly. Right, so Diaz,
she basically, I don't know at this age, that cub's not particularly mobile at the moment, so, she just kind of walks away, I think, and the cub instinctually disappears back into the den. When they get a bit older, you'll find that the mothers will snarl at them and sort of tell them to stay exactly where they are. Now, that, of course, is the ring-necked dove, or used to be the Cape turtle dove, which was a much nicer name than ring-necked dove. Ornithologists have done their best to make the names of the birds as unappealing as possible, and I've got out of the vehicle because, in addition to the ring-necked dove, let me just get out of its way, I have spotted something in this tree. Now, many of you might say, how did the dung beetle get the dung ball into the tree? Which, of course, was my first thought, and it is an erroneous thought, of course. This is an ant nest, but of which ants I couldn't say. And it's made entirely of soil. It's a ball of soil, picked up by the ants, carried up the tree, and placed over here. Now, the temptation, of course, is to break it open and have a look what's going on, but that wouldn't be very nice of me, and in fact, it would be very unnice of me. What I am just going to try and show you is the hole. You see the hole there? That's the entrance to the ant nest. Isn't that amazing? Hello? Hello? No answer. Perhaps they're sleeping. Big night on New Year's Eve, probably in the ant nest there. Everybody's still sleeping off a major hangover, probably. Shame on them. Some of the ants out here really do get completely out of hand. It's quite difficult to watch, especially for disciplined people like ourselves who never get out of hand at all. Okay, on we go. We'll see what else we can see around here. Just be aware that the signal might start to drop. Now Taylor has found yet more in the way of Panthera leo, this time little ones of the black rock variety.
You've got my audio here? Yeah. It's your side, it's not ours. Right, can you hear us now? Is the audio fine now, Faith? Our mic packs and things are working fine. Ah, there we go, sorry. Right, now I've got to say everything again. And it was so funny. I said something along the lines of that I needed to basically do a disclaimer because of how cute these cubs were, and that if you were walking and watching on your phone, you better stop and sit down. Because you'll forget what's around you and then you'll fall and hurt yourself. Now, these little cubs are honestly the most precious things I've ever seen. I was telling you this morning, it's been a very long time since I've sat and watched little lion cubs, and I definitely have been missing it. And you all know that lions are my absolute favorite of the big cats. So to see them when they're this tiny, oh my goodness. And those fluffy white bellies. Oh, that one's practicing sit-ups. Isn't that so cute? Trying to lick its belly, but hasn't quite worked out the way in which to do that, and its itchy feet. Oh, I bet you're all oohing and ahhing. It's kind of hard not to when you see things like this. My jaw is sore from smiling so much, which is really cool to say. I mean, how great is that? The fact that I can go home and people say to me, Taylor, why is your jaw so sore? And I say, well, I smiled so much because I was surrounded by 9 little lion cubs today. And they're all old enough now to start grooming themselves and grooming one another, so they do spend a fair amount of time. However, it's not as coordinated as an adult. A little while ago, we sort of watched, like what that one cub was doing, trying to lick its belly, but it did it for a couple of minutes and just couldn't succeed. It was as if it was doing sit-ups or crunches. It was very precious to see. It was so nice. I don't know where any of the adults are. I'm sure the lionesses are around somewhere. Maybe they've actually gone off on a hunt, because I can't see them at all. So good luck to them. And it's perfect conditions now with all the wind and the potential rain coming in too. Oh, this is so sweet. So they'll probably just stay here. They've moved out of the guarri bushes now because the rocks are nice and warm and it is getting quite cold. So at least they'll keep toasty. Now, Gloria, you're wondering if lions can be identified by their whisker spots, just like leopards? Most certainly. A combination of things, kind of like what we do with leopards too. Look for any notches in the ears, any scratches, any broken teeth when they yawn like that. No broken teeth there, though. There's still baby teeth. You've still got to get your big ones. They don't seem to be too impressed by the wind this afternoon. They look a little bit miserable. But at least they've got the nice rocks to keep them warm. What about all the other lions that don't have these beautiful rocks? Oh, isn't that precious? I'm going to come and put my paw on you, and I might groom you, or I'm going to bite your tail. And I think we're going to come straight back here tomorrow morning to see what these guys are up to. And hopefully the adults would have successfully hunted and, well, given them a nice meal. Whether it's a buffalo or in the form of milk. Lynn, you said now you know it's not the right thing to do, but do I ever feel like petting or holding these cubs? Of course. Oh, do you think I don't want to go and dive into the middle of those little ones and have them jump on top of me and lick me and bite my ears? Of course, but there's puppies and kittens to do that with. These cubs, of course, would just run away from me. They'd be petrified, so I would never do something like that. And if Mom was nearby, well, good luck to me. It'll probably be the last thing that I touch. But they also be too quick. I wouldn't be able to get to them. But of course, no, these are wild animals. So like you rightfully said, we would never do anything like that. But of course it is. It's only human. We as humans, we want to touch and cuddle everything that is cute. Look at that one, fast asleep, just sitting off to the side. So I've touched a lion that's been darted, but I've never I've never gone and petted one that was awake, ever. I'd be too scared to. I feel like animals that are wild, but are now living in captivity, are more dangerous than the wild animals because their behavior becomes masked and it becomes very difficult to try and interpret what's going on. But I'm excited to spend a couple more hours with these little lions, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to do that now. The sun is starting to set soon and there is a big rainstorm and we're quite far away from home. We've got to go through a couple of luggers and things, so I don't want them to turn into rivers before we can even cross them. But I've most certainly enjoyed my time with these little lions. But let's have one last little look at these lions before we have to leave, and we'll come here at first light. So remember to tune in for the sunrise safari so that you can see these little cubs again. Right, we're going to move on now and try and beat the rain. But I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun on board his vehicle.
Welcome back, folks. We've managed to locate them. They are small, they're hiding in the long grass. It is your favorites, I believe, some of you, the Styx cubs. We've located them just on our southern boundary, and they are doing what lions do. They are chilling, licking, probably getting some water off their fur from that rain. Saves having to walk to a pan to drink. Visual's not great, but we will see if they move around a bit. But they are sitting in the thick bush. I believe there are 10 Styx cubs, and there's some debate about the sex, which I think is going around. I'm not too sure on the sex at the moment, but apparently 6 or 7 are males, which would make 3 to 4 female. This is my first time seeing them, so it's very hard for me to tell you exactly. And lying down like that, it's very, very difficult. Very, very nice. So I do think these were seen last night by by Tristan, and he left them because daylight was fading and there were no adults around, which is the ethical thing to do. The lions will spend a lot of their time just sitting in the long grass like this, and they're right next to the main road, which is quite bizarre when it comes to trying to hide your cubs from marauding males or hyenas. It's not the most ideal place, so who knows what's going on. But there are 10 of them, and lion mortality rates are extremely high in the wild, naturally so. The adults keep their cubs exposed like this, so it doesn't offer the greatest potential for them to reach maturity. But you can see the individual busy licking. If anyone's ever felt a cat's tongue before, it's very rasping. It's quite painful on the skin, like sandpaper. A very important element to their behavior, the grooming. They will lick every inch of their body, and then, being in a pride structure as lions are, they can groom their heads and their faces, places that they aren't able to reach. Alana, age 14, a question: how old do lion cubs have to be for the females to go back into estrus? The question there is generally 2 to 3 years. A female will be with cubs before coming into estrus again, probably 2.5. But the interesting fact there, and it's quite a sad fact, but if a male lion comes into a pride and he kills the cubs of a female, she will come into estrus within a month of the death of her cubs. We might think that that's extremely cruel and extremely brutal, but that genetic trait, that ability of that behavior that the male is doing is obviously then increased because he's having more youngsters. If you come into a pride as a male and the female has cubs that are not yours, and you have to wait 2.5 years before you can breed with them, through your duration as a pride male, you're only going to have so many cubs are going to be born. But if you come into a pride and you kill the cubs, and within 1 month she is reproductive again and she has your cubs, then that behavior that male is putting forward will obviously continue, and he'll have more cubs, more babies, more offspring, which means that behavioral trait will carry on through the line. Okay, so we're going to stay here a little bit with these cubs and see if we can, if they can come out on the road and have a little bit more fun with us. But while we're waiting with them, we're going to link you to James, who I believe is one of the feathered kind, my favorite.
Look at this beautiful bird. This is, I think, as of right now, my favorite kingfisher, the grey-headed kingfisher, Halcyon leucocephalus, which basically means white-head leucocephala, I think, although it's got a grey head. Isn't its blue colour amazing? It's very distinct from the blue colour of the striped, the brown-hooded and the woodland kingfishers, which have that kind of much more turquoise blue colour. This one's got an almost navy-coloured back feathered area. What would you call it? It's the wings, I guess, and the tail. The mangrove, the brown-hooded, the striped, all have that turquoise colour to a greater or lesser extent. They're all part of the same genus, the Halcyon genus, but this one, Halcyon leucocephala, I think is the most magnificent. Now, Paula, you say, oh, that blue, exactly. Now, what I want to do, I didn't want to do this before you came here because I don't know its call, and I want to play its call, but I'm going to play it with the warning that it may fly off. So here we go. There it is. You can see he's very confused. He thinks maybe there's another one here. I always feel a little bit bad doing that, but not that bad. Okay, let's stop. Right, so that's an interesting call. And of course they're not common, these grey-headed kingfishers, which is why I get quite excited when we see them. Very nice. Ooh, and in the background, Shelley's Franklin. You hear that? That's odd. I say it's odd because we're not... They tend to be, I thought, more grassland birds than they would have been woodland birds, and we're in the thickets here around Beefles Hook Dam. Fascinating. Alrighty, well that was the grey-headed kingfisher. I'm going to head on to Beefles Hook Dam now, see what we can find there. Here we are, arriving at Beefles Hook Dam, where Steve had a rather frustrating time this morning with Scuba Steve, the hippopotamus. Ooh, there is a terrapin. Looks like it might come out the water. I don't think it will, though. Now, that is most likely a marsh terrapin. You see it there, Senzo? No, just to the... Oh, it's just gone under the water. Never mind, let us leave the terrapin alone. So I was saying Steve had a problem with Scuba Steve today. He wouldn't come out of the water to display himself. Ooh, we do have two interesting things here though, albeit not of the hippopotamus variety. We've got two yellow-billed storks. Now they're quite pretty storks, I think. Let me just get a bit closer and we can stop. Hello, fellows. Now I don't know if any of you were on drive this morning, but what's his name again? Tristan, yes, that's right. Tristan had a magnificent sighting of an open-billed stork eating a mussel. Yes, that's what I said, a freshwater mussel. Well, these chaps probably not looking for freshwater mussels, much more likely to be looking for frogs and feech. Even though their bills are open, as you can see. I'm just going to check that, make sure that I'm not telling you a lie, for perhaps they do sometimes eat such bivalves. Let me check my book. Can we just have a communications test quickly from the final control? Are you still with us? Are we still on air? There we are, we're okay. Good. Okay, the yellow-billed stork. Food, mainly fish, frogs, aquatic insects, worms and crustaceans. Doesn't that sound like a nice diet? Fish, that's okay. Frogs, slightly less appetizing. Insects, even less. Worms, no. But crustaceans can be delicious. One thinks of lobsters, especially after one has just finished a beach holiday. Yeah, Mia, absolutely. You say, do I find the birds react when we play their calls to them? Yes, they do react quite often. Some birds will call back or fly towards you thinking that there's another bird in their territory that they need to chase out. Sometimes they just sit and look confused, and when they react too much, I start to feel a little bit bad about it, because of course it does alarm them if suddenly there's a presence in their territory that they thought was empty. And so I do feel a little bit bad sometimes, but not very bad. Very nice. Well, they're not totally stickler or the red-billed. Now when breed should have a pinkish tinge to the feathers. October, March 1. Okay, so all times of the year actually, but in Mpumalanga, August to September normally. But they will in fact breed at any time. Now, it's, although locally common, it is near threatened, interestingly. I didn't know that. And it is augmented by non-breeding intra-African migrants. So some of them migrate and some of them don't. Isn't that interesting? Some of them lurk around here and others do not. I think that's fascinating. It really is very interesting indeed. Isn't it pretty? I seem to remember also that they can be quite a lot greyer than this. Yeah, if they're younger, they get very grey.
Words elude me right now. We've managed to relocate, well, reposition should I say, and we found the really small little cubs there, all snuggled up together, trying to keep warm. They, I'm pretty sure, got extremely wet about 3 hours ago, while we were in our rooms keeping dry, and they're all nice and snuggled. It seems like the older ones are on the left, and the younger ones are on the right. I can't count 10, but there's at least 5 there on the left, and the bunch huddled on the right are all very, very well snuggled. So the lions populations, how lions essentially breed, is they will often breed at the same time. Females will come into estrus and will reproduce at the same time, which allows them to do something called communal suckling, which means that either mother will suckle one of the youngsters, and that can go on for a year or 2, year and a half, 8 months probably at the average, but she will look after the other cubs for her sister. Essentially they are related, the lions and the pride, the females are related, they are sisters, they are mothers, they are grannies, and so it is in their benefit to look after each other. And now we come to the question of why do lions do this and leopards don't do this? And the interesting fact is that a pride of lions needs a lot of lions recruited for the tasks that they perform. Pulling down giraffe, even zebra, things like buffalo require big muscle and working in a team. We can go back quite a long way and talk about how cats evolved from the forests, and as the climate changed, the savannas became a reality from dense woodland or dense forests where the prey species were very small. The forests opened up to form large savannas, which allowed for huge accumulation of grass, and you just saw your herbivores get bigger and bigger. Now, why the lions didn't get any bigger is practically just a physiological thing. You can only get so big before it becomes a hindrance to your size, and so instead of becoming bigger, they just formed prides where individuals work together cooperatively to take down prey that they couldn't naturally take down on their own. I'm not saying a lion can't take down a zebra, but it pays to have help. But a lion will not be able to take down a buffalo adult on its own. Cubs most certainly, or babies most certainly, of the buffalo, but definitely not an adult. So working in prides and groups allows them to feed on larger prey, allows them to compete for bigger territories, allows them to compete with hyena, which form quite large clans. And they're not looking very competitive right now. They are doing what lions do. They're lying flat in the grass, and if we were walking right now and we came across this, I don't know if we would see it too soon. and quite a dangerous situation to walk into. You don't know where mum is, or where the mothers are. They could be anywhere. But these cubs basically will just stay in place from where mum has left them and wait for her to come back. They can take 2 to 3 days to come back sometimes, which is also one of the reasons why lion cubs' mortality rate is quite high. Obviously the adults will go away and feed, and if you feed on a big animal like a buffalo, giraffe or zebra, it's very hard to bring that back to the cubs. So they'll feed where they are, and then once they've sated themselves, they will make their way back and then suckle the cubs. So often the absence can be the fatality event, meaning the cubs don't get the nutrition that they need, or it could be the absence of the protection, which allows hyenas, other lions, or even leopards to prey on these small cats. I know there's documentaries years ago of leopard cubs being killed by pythons. These things happen, and the dangers out there are real. But being in a pride like this, having lots of cubs, you're obviously hedging your bets to see how many will come of age, but the success rate is not very good. It's not very high. But these guys are beyond cute, beyond cute. Seems to be a little bit of mange on the head there, and around the ears. But from an early age, learning their part of have to lick, have to keep clean, have to groom ourselves. A little bit of movement happening now. I know some of you got your first visual of Tandi's cub yesterday. I only saw that on stream as well. But definitely cubs are the cutest and most watchable creatures out there, especially when they start playing. And where we are at the moment, we're still on the main road, and there's evidence in the road all around us of the tracks that the individuals had just before. And before we got here, tracks all over the place of many individuals, young and small, and some of them are so small you can tell it was one of those really small babies. And obviously when mum or the adults were around, they started getting a bit frisky, and they were jumping up and down, and they were playing with each other. Clearly I'm not going to climb out now to point out one of these tracks, but there you can see lots and lots of lion tracks in the sand here. There's the difference between the adult and the cub. The adult on the top left there with a bit of a scrape, which means that they were even playing. You know, it's social skills that these cats do. They will play with each other, they'll jump on each other, they'll stalk each other. It's skills and techniques and strategies that they learn to survive from a later age. Pulling down your brother now is learning how to take down a zebra in many years to come. Obviously a young lion like this, or lions won't actively hunt until 2.5, maybe 3 years of age. They just don't have the experience. I've followed lions before the mountain pride in the Lobombos. That was a very successful pride, and they had at the time 14 youngsters that were between 1.5 and 3, and I think that's what the ages they became while I was there. They were about 3.5 when I left. But the cubs would often be watching mum stalk, and the adults would be in the front, busy stalking, getting really close to the antelope that was unaware. And then behind the mum, the two cubs jumped up and started tackling each other and completely gave away the presence of the adults. And all she did was look back in disdain. And what communication passes there is difficult to say, but what we do know is that cub didn't get to eat then, and so it learnt that playing games while mum's hunting leads to an empty belly. Because once they're from about this age, definitely the ones on the left there are old enough to be eating a lot of meat, but those really small cubs are primarily focusing on, they will eat meat, but the milk from mum is very important. But these guys will consume huge amounts of meat, and there are stats out there that an individual lion needs about 100 prey animals per animal per year, which, if you work that out, is a phenomenal amount. And that ranges in size. I think there's an average there, and they just work it out, about 100 animals. So if you want to stock lions and you want to have 10 lions, you've got to work out the math and work out that is going to be a lot of animals that they're going to eat every year. And can you afford to keep those on your property? That's why there are lots of different types of ecotourism, lots of different types of management. And if the money's not coming in, you've got to really think about how you can manage these places. Without the money coming in, it's impossible to keep them at the levels you'd like them to be. Obviously, being the Greater Kruger National Park, the numbers here fluctuate and are quite dependent and are determined by drought and good conditions. So what we're seeing now is a boom in the weather. We're seeing really good rainfall, which is good for your herbivore species. They're going to build up condition. We saw those kudu, we saw the nyala earlier. There's some impala feeding. They're building up condition for when the time is hot and when the conditions get worse. And what you see in these drought conditions is as the vegetation decreases, you see an increase in your predators because the animals are at very low strength, very low bodily fitness, and they are losing life at much easier rate. And as the vegetation goes up, should I say the drought is reversed, you see the lion populations decline again. So it's this constant up and down battle between the predator and the prey, and these natural systems, they do balance themselves out naturally. Absolutely wonderful. The sun has come out. The cubs are still sitting underneath the bush there. Maybe they'll venture out into the sunlight here and dry their fur. So we're going to stay with them for a little while longer, and I believe James has got something that side for you, so we'll catch up with you shortly.
Hello everybody, especially at Corporate Landing Elementary School in Virginia. My goodness, they don't give you much holiday, do you? Do they? 2nd of January and you're back at school. A travesty of justice is what I call that. Now, my name is James Hendry. Sorry about that. On camera is Senzo. There are his 3 fingers, and we're looking at some impala. We're sitting, of course, in the Greater Kruger National Park, 8.5 million acres it is, of wilderness here in the northeastern corner of South Africa, the world's most beautiful country. There is no debate about that, of course. Now, you can ask us as many questions as you'd like. We'd love to hear from you over the course of the next 45 minutes while you are having a break from your mathematics and English and geography and history. This, I believe, is some sort of substitute for your science class. So let's do a little bit of fun biological science here. These are impala, and they are the most common antelope that we get out here. Antelope, of course, very similar to a deer, but not quite the same. And these are 2 males, and we know they're males, of course, because they have got horns. Horns are distinct or different from antlers, of course, in that they do not fall off every year. There they are. Now, these 2 males don't seem to like each other very much, and they're making sort of roaring sounds at each other. They're going, which is a very odd noise for an antelope to be making, of course. But there they are. Just let's keep watching them. They might have a little bit of a fight. Now, normally they will fight probably around March and April, which is just before the breeding season. And what we call that season is the rut. Now, he's not yawning. He's actually displaying. That means showing how strong he is to his friend. And that rubbing of his horns like that on the bush makes the bush smell like him. Wonderful sighting of our most common antelope here. And then the other thing I suppose that might be quite interesting from a biological point of view is that this area is known as woodland. So often people come to Africa and they talk about the jungle or the savannah. And yes, there are areas of savannah in South Africa, but largely those savannah areas are up in the eastern parts of Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania. And I'm not sure if we're going to take you up there during the course of this drive. We might. We're very lucky get up there. We've got 2 chaps up there. And this particular vegetation type is known as woodland. Now, Alex, you've just floored me with your question. You say, how big is Africa? Africa, Alex, is much, much, much bigger than the United States. Now, I've used to have a diagram that I carried with me, but I now don't have it anymore. But basically, into Africa, you could fit the entire United States, in fact, the whole of North America, bits of Europe, quite a large portion of South America as well. So Africa is enormous. It's much, much bigger than the United States. But of course, that's not surprising because Africa is a continent. It's not just a country. We're now going into geography, of course. South Africa, where I am now, is much smaller, for example, than the United States. It's probably about, I'm going to say, about a sixth of the size. A sixth, so you could probably put 6 South Africas into the United States. And of course, Africa is made up of about 54 countries, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So in the same way that the United States, of course, is made of 50 states. There we go. Let's carry on down this road. While we do that, of course, there are some things out here that like to eat impala, and we're going to show you some baby ones now.
Welcome, Corporate Landing Elementary, my apologies, from Virginia. How are we doing? Welcome to the show. We have got the cutest little lion cubs here. They have weathered the storm we had a couple hours ago. We had lightning and thunderstorms and rain. And they are sitting under the tree. There's about 10 of them. They are just hanging out and doing what lions do. Grooming, cleaning each other. Really, really nice to be here. We're the only vehicle in the position, which is quite special, and we are loving it. Please send your questions through. I'd love to chat to you about lions and see what facts and information you might like to share. But there's 10 of them. I believe there's probably six or seven are males. 3 or 4 of them are young females, but it's really hard to say. One of them was sitting up a moment ago, the one just behind that one. You can clearly see it's a male, developing a little bit of a mane of hair around underneath the throat and a little bit on the top of the head. They always look a little bit out of place, the young males, with a funny hairstyle. But it kind of masks their appearance for a long time, so they aren't really recognized as a male, because if a big male who's not dad comes into the area, he very quickly identifies the young males and chases them away, because they are obviously no use to him. Chases them away. And we were talking before about the size of prides, and a pride of lions is obviously a group of lions. Skylar, you ask a question, do animals attack each other? Well, we are looking at lions, and lions, they attack almost anything they come across. They primarily do that for feeding. A lion can feed on a huge amount of meat at a time. I mean, a big male lion can feed on about 60 pounds of meat in one sitting. It's about 36 kilograms, which is a phenomenal amount of food. But yeah, they will attack anything that moves. I've even seen them kill mice. I've seen them kill small birds. But they generally go for the medium to large sized animals. And yeah, they look quite cuddly and cute. But I guarantee you, if you get out in a sighting with lions, you are probably going to end up with a bit of a sore leg or a sore arm. It's not advised. And here we do have only youngsters, but if Mom was around, it would be a death sentence climbing out of the car now, because she is very, very protective. They will put their life on the line for their babies, and they will do everything they can to protect the youngsters. And obviously the youngsters can't run away too quickly. A lion, if you approached it on foot, invariably most of the time will move away from you. It doesn't want to attack us. They know who we are. We've evolved with them over a very long time. But if they can't move away because they have cubs behind them, you will get a question: at what age does a lion cub leave its family? If it's a female, it will never leave unless the pride gets too big, that the food resource, the amount of food available, is too little. Then you might have a pride split in two. Doesn't happen too often. But a male lion, it really depends on how long dad stays around. If dad stays around, that male lion can stay in there for 3-4 years. But generally about the ages of 3 to 4, your males get pushed away, even younger if a new male comes into the pride. So it really depends on the area. I mean, there are places in Africa where the son ends up staying in the pride and ends up becoming a pride male with the dad. It's not great for the genetics of the place, but it does happen. But naturally, in a system like this, you would have males leaving between the ages of 3 and 4, but even earlier if a new dad comes in, which can often be quite difficult for them. And we spoke about earlier why you often get prides and they have lots of babies at the same time, because if you have 3 or 4, maybe 5 boys, here they are, maybe 6, if they all get pushed away at the same time, then they have a better chance of maybe claiming a territory at any given time. We've just got someone joining us, folks. I'm just going to have to move quickly. Good afternoon. You guys want a visual? Do you want a visual?
That's good, eh?
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. So, folks, we're just saying hello to one of our other guest vehicles on the reserve. They've come to also have a look at us and the lions. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? We've been here with them for quite a while on our own. Frankie, a question you asked there about how many cubs a female can have. I think the maximum that's been recorded is about 6. Possibly there's more, but you often, on average, you get between 2 and 3. But 6 have been recorded, which means that 2 or 3 females can really populate a pride in almost no time if the cubs survive. So I hope that answers that question for you. So these cubs are doing their thing. They are very relaxed.
They just run away. If it was the bigger ones, then it's fine. But the small cubbies,
Jaden, you ask a question there. This is my first time seeing the cubs. You ask how old are they now, or how big are they now. I might have to defer that question because I can't see them all there. But that one you're looking at there is only a few months old. They are very, very young, 4, 5, maybe 6 months. Whereas one of the larger males there is probably about 1.5 years. But I don't know this pride very well. This is officially my first day on the job. As compared to domestic animal, lions can get up to the size of 135, 136 kilograms for female, so you can double that, about 280 pounds for female. A male can get probably 100 pounds more than that, maybe 200 pounds more than that. But these little cubs now are probably the size that the ones you're looking at, probably the size of a Jack Russell, I would say. That one there that's busy licking. If you've all seen Jack Russells before, it's quite an interesting mix to compare this with them. Whereas the ones on the left, the size of a Alsatian. But these lions are relaxing. They're not doing too much at the moment, and I believe James has got a striped critter for you that it normally forms prey to these lions. So let's go to James and see what he has.
Well, it is, but it's very big. Look at this magnificent animal here. It's called a kudu. That's spelled Kudu, kudu. And he has got stripes, and those stripes help to make him a little bit more invisible, a little bit more camouflaged here in the thick bush. See how well hidden he is? Now, I'm sure you learn about camouflage at your age, between 8 and 9 years, I believe you all are. So camouflage, of course, means wearing something that makes you almost invisible in your surroundings, in the same way that a soldier wears camouflage. Now, the kudu has got camouflage. You can see he's very well coloured for the area that he's in. But what's interesting here is that you can't see his head. Now that's not camouflage, that's just hiding. And a lot of these animals, in order to avoid predators, will hide rather than try and rely on their camouflage. There's another one just in there we go. Now you can see in this thick bush, very difficult for a predator to see a kudu, especially if he stands very still. But you can see a lot of meat on a kudu for something like a lion. They weigh about 500 pounds. Now, Jaden, not only male antelopes have horns. You say, why do only the male antelopes have horns? In some antelope species, the females also have horns. And if we look at something like a wildebeest, of course, which is one of the most numerous antelopes we get up in East Africa, they've got horns. And if we also look at what else has got horns, I'm trying to think, eland, much bigger as well. Often you'll find that when the antelope males, only the males have got horns, you'll find that they use them for fighting each other. Whereas with the females also have horns, you'll find that they use the horns also for defense. So they'll try and fight off predators. Interesting, hey? Very nice question, that, Jaden. Thank you. Alrighty, we're going to carry on along here, see what else we can find. You can see the bush is very thick around here because we're going through a riverbed. Water underneath. And water, the bush is much thicker here than it would be up on top of the hills. And the trees are much bigger. We might be very lucky and spot a little in trees, which would be very nice indeed. On we go. So we had a big rainstorm this afternoon. That's why it looks a bit wet. And there's a lovely smell in the air. It smells like fresh earth. If you go and put some water in the soil and then inhale that smell, in fact you can try that when you get home today, if they ever let you out of school. You can go home and take a jug or turn on the garden hose, but not for long, and you can make some mud, I suppose, in your mother's flower bed. If you have a flower bed at home, don't put in the flower bed, and then smell that smell of the wet soil. And that's what it smells like around here at the moment. Very delicious. What else can we see? I can hear some birds. Tailed drongo. Why would they be shouting? Birds often shout when they see a predator. Let's just drive very carefully here and see if they haven't spotted a predator. There is the Senzo on top. He's flying away. You see him there? Well spotted. A fork-tailed drongo, that bird's called, because he's got a forked tail. Looks like he's got a little fork on his backside there. And he will often make an alarm call that alerts other birds to the presence of even an eagle, or a lion in the grass, or something as small as a mongoose. Alrighty, we're going to continue along here, see if we can't find something exciting. When we do that, let's go back to those lovely lion cubs.
You're back with us again, folks, and we've just had a little bit of traffic on the road. We are on the main road here, which makes viewing like this sometimes a little bit tricky, but we seem to have been left now by the other vehicles, so we've just repositioned to try and get us in a good spot. And I don't know if you can get them there. Sorry about the pole, folks, but we've had thunderstorms today, so we battened down the hatches and we've got the roof on. There we go. Look at that beautiful profile. I can't keep the eyes open though. What do lions do most of the day? Your guess is correct. They like to sleep. They like to lie down. And the folks are off somewhere. In weather like what we had earlier, when it gets a bit muddy, when the wind picks up, when it rains, it's not uncommon to have lions moving, especially because it's cooler. If you were with us yesterday, you'll know that it was extremely hot. Temperatures were very, very hot yesterday, very humid, and this brought this thunderstorms on today, and we've had very nice, cool, wet conditions today, which really is one of the things that allows us to survive out here in the hot temperatures of the savannah. But the lions, still very relaxed. So Mia, a question you asked about how much food a lion can eat. Well, if you look at a male lion, he can eat about 60, 70 pounds of meat in one sitting. If you can imagine that, that is a huge amount of meat. And that is due to competition. The female can probably eat about 24 kilograms, so that's about 50 pounds. So it's a huge amount of food. And the cubs, they will eat what they can get. And zebras, impala, kudu, wildebeest, they all go down the same way. And a pride, when they are moving, when there are a lot of them, and when they feed, it is vicious, it is violent. There's a lot of anger that gets displaced. There's lots of scratching and growling and fighting over the meat. And we all think that might be a bad thing, but what it allows them to do, and even from a young age, you'll see cubs will compete for the mother's milk. And those who can't compete, very sad story, but if they can't compete, they don't survive. And what that allows is that the genetics or the weakness that those babies might have had aren't allowed to breed, and so they don't go forward. And then once they're cubs and they go to a little bit older, so I guarantee you, if these youngsters here that we got in picture, if there was meat and if there was a kill, there would be a lot of aggression between them, and that just gets more and more and more as they get older. The sounds which start off as cute little cat meows turn into growls and grunts and huge snarls that really do turn one's belly. I've had guests in the past who watched lions kill a giraffe and pulled the giraffe down. They managed to eventually subdue it, and the feeding started. There were 24 lions on a giraffe, and can you imagine the noise was fierce. And I remember the guests, they were from America, from New York, and they started to relax. It was a moonless night, very dark, and we decided to turn the lights off, and that noise just seemed to amplify. And yes, it was quite an experience, the sounds in the bush there. So folks, just give me a moment. I just need to reposition again now. We do have another vehicle coming in here, wants to join us for these lions. So I'm just going to reverse quickly and give them some space. I am for Minjan, for Gil. Sure. Some pimpans there, eh? Okay folks, so we're just busy repositioning, letting this other vehicle get into the sighting. I believe James has a very mobile-eyed creature for you. So let's go to James and see what he has.
Can you believe what we've got over here? I nearly ran over the spectacular animal, and I told you about camouflage a little bit earlier. This creature is the most camouflaged creature that we'll ever find out here. Now, I'm not going to touch him, but he's called a chameleon. And they are renowned, which means they are known for being able to change colour. Now, if I put him on something bright red, he's not going to turn red. But if I left him for long enough on something that was a red-brown colour like this road, he would eventually turn the colour of this road. That might take a few months, though. Right now, what he's trying to do is be very, very still. He's not sure that I've seen him. And also, because it's cold and he's a reptile, it's quite difficult for him to move. Now, when he does move, what he does is he starts to shake like a leaf. And then he takes one slow step forward, so that any predator will think that he is, in fact, a leaf and not something to eat. Now, let's see if we can just encourage him to move slightly. Come on then, on you go. Don't get stuck in the road here. Normally we wouldn't touch these animals. I don't want him to stay on the road though, so I'm not too scared to try and make him move a bit. They don't bite. Come on, fellow, you need to get off the road. He's frozen stiff, almost. No, he's not moving anywhere. I think he's cold with fear. And if you look carefully now, if you look at him carefully, you'll see the black spots are starting to fade. When we saw him first, those black spots were almost invisible. Can you see them changing? Now that's because he's feeling a certain amount of stress. I was rather hoping that he would start to move the way I showed you, so I'm just going to demonstrate again. Basically what he does is he starts to shake like this, and then one foot will land on the ground. It's a very painful, slow process, and then the next one goes. Very, very slowly, but they can move quickly if they want to. Because this guy is so well camouflaged and he's on quite a large road, I am going to pick him up. We wouldn't normally do this. I'm just going to put him over there, though, because I don't want him to be hurt by a car. There we go. Come on in. There we go. There you can see him move now. We'll just put him over here so that he can move into the grass. You see him moving? You still see him? Now he's frozen again. Just keep watching him as I move away. He might do that rocking motion. That's really very special. No, he's much too scared to give us his rocking motion. He's still not doing it. Come on, just give us a little bit of a rocking motion, otherwise everyone's going to think I'm mad. There, look. There he goes. See? You can see the water droplets there. We've had lots of rain today. There we go. Just like I showed you. Isn't that great? See how painfully slowly he moves? And now if you're a snake, like a tree snake, which likes to eat one of these things, or perhaps a hornbill bird, which also likes to eat them, if you see that thing, I mean, if you look very carefully, then you'll know what it is. But if you just see this thing waving like those grass stalks are waving there, well, you might think it's just a leaf. And look how he disappears as Hensel zooms out. Ah, what a very special sighting that was. Okay, on we go. Jaden, you're wondering what size chameleons are? Well, you saw me sitting next to him there. He's about that big. So that's about 8 inches, I guess. About 8 inches long. 20 centimeters or so. That's wonderful. Very nice indeed. Ian, just let me get this question right. You say, why is there sand in Africa? Is that right? Ian, there's sand everywhere, and sand is what we call weathered rock. So if you find a stone outside where you live in Virginia, that stone, after millions of years of being in the rain and in the wind, will eventually become sand, plus or minus. And basically, that's why there's sand everywhere in the world, except, in fact, there'll probably be sand even in Antarctica. All over the world, except for very rare desert, or not desert islands, for very rare volcanic islands. Everywhere else in the world you'll find sand, because rocks over millions of years have weathered, or they've broken down into tiny little pieces, which is what sand is, because of wind and rain and sometimes heat and pressure. Alrighty, I hope that answers your question. Now Manessa, you're asking what the lifespan of a chameleon is, and I'm not entirely sure that I can tell you. I think that the lifespan of a chameleon is probably about 5 or 6 years, so they can live a fair amount of time. I'm not sure exactly, but we can look it up, and that particular chameleon is called a flap-necked chameleon. There are lots of different kinds of chameleons. Here we only get one. So they don't live a very long time. Now we're heading down towards a waterhole where I'm rather hoping there's going to be some activity. But while we do that, let's head back across to Steve, who is sitting with, I think, the world's cutest animals.
And you're back with us again, folks, with the cutest eyes in the world staring at us through the foliage there. Beautiful green grass, contrasting the amber animal at the back. Now they don't look very camouflaged right now, but in the winter months the grass is very brown and the animals are almost completely invisible. And for those of you who weren't aware of it, if you can see on the lion there, baby lion, you see the behind the ears is black, nice and black. And that is because when they're looking forward, they are practically invisible to most of the animals that they are hunting, or, as you said before, trying to attack. But from behind, those black ears are a communication signal between the adults when they're hunting. And no one knows it 100% sure how they communicate. There you can see a nice black ear, how they communicate, but it's all visual body language. You don't see any of them making a noise or saying anything. It's just the position of the head. When it is focused in a direction, the ears are focused in one direction, and the individuals who are hunting with that animal can pick up on the cues or the signs that it is putting out, saying, I am hunting that animal there in that direction. And quite often you'll find individuals running around or forming all sorts of distraction displays, which are used to entice or to push animals towards probably waiting lions that are maybe hiding in the grass, or push them into the wind, a direction that they could be ambushed. So that's what we see right now, brown cubs in green grass. Skylar asked a question, how much strength? That is a very interesting question. I don't know, but I know it's a lot. There's a lot more than most animals you come across. I think the only other animal out there, predator-wise, that's stronger than a lion, one for one, would be a tiger. And we all know tigers are huge and formidable, but the strength, that's a very good question. What I know is that if a male lion jumped on a fully grown man, for those of you from America, if a male lion jumped on a fully grown big American football player, I'm pretty sure it would pull him to the ground effortlessly. It would actually be quite an interesting study to see, but we'll leave that for another day. But the strength, that is a very good question. Look at those black ears and how contrasting they are. What I mean by contrasting is how they look very different from the brown head. And when they're looking in one direction, you can see that the ears aren't focused. They're kind of like panning off to the left and to the right. Ooh, there's a big yawn. Quite often when a lion has a yawn, it then stands up and maybe has a little potty break. Logan, a question from you. Where do lions stay in the morning? Well, lions will walk around at night and they will lie down wherever they are, wherever they feel the need to lie down. Maybe on a kill, maybe they were hunting all night and they weren't successful. They'll get tired and they'll just eventually lie down and there'll be no more movement, and that's where they'll get up in the morning. But for us to understand mornings and evenings in a lion's terms is very different to the way we experience mornings and evenings. They don't have the same 9 to 5 that we have, and they are more active at night than they are in the daytime. So the question should be, where do lions stay in the day? Because that's where they will move around at night, eventually getting to a point where their energy is quite low and maybe the sun is getting quite high or getting quite warm. They'll find themselves under a tree in the shade, and they'll stay there for the majority of the day, until it cools down and they can move again. But I believe that we have something very interesting with James on the other side there. Who can think about it? The long nose. James, let's see what you have. Enjoy, folks.
Well, it does have a very long nose. It's an elephant. Very special to be seeing an elephant. They are magnificent animals, one of my favourites. Unfortunately, this one's quite far away. He's just disappearing behind a bush. Let me move forward slightly. Or, yeah, we might... I don't think our signal was bad here. It should be okay. There we go. Now, the bull elephant, that means he's a male, young male. And I think what he's doing, why he's on his own, is that he's probably just old enough to have left his herd. As the group of elephants live in. Oh,
And we're back again, and there you can see the individual that I said had a bit of a yawn is now starting to get a little bit active. You can see the tongue was licking, and then it might find something, a tick or something, and then the teeth go in there and start gnawing it out. Look at that. Very important for them to keep themselves clean. Lots of parasites and lots of ticks that are accumulated in the grass here, especially after rain. So you'll notice that we as guides walk around with specialized things on our socks, and we spray ourselves to keep the ticks from attacking us. But it's inevitable. We are going to get lots of ticks, and when you're a very furry animal like that, you're going to get covered in all sorts of things that stick to your fur and are going to suck your blood. If you're not able to remove those ticks from you, you're going to lose condition, you're going to lose fitness, and then life is going to be difficult. And when it's the life of a lion, you need to be strong, you need to be fit, you need to be able to compete, or you do not survive. So being able to groom is a very important ability. Lion, I believe, is your name. How fast can a lion run? Well, that's a very interesting question. Lions are sprinters. They're not long-distance runners, and they can travel at about... I think that the speed is about 85 kilometers an hour, which if you halve that, you're looking at about 40-odd miles an hour, which is a phenomenal speed if you can work that out. They travel at 22 meters per second. So that's at a sprint, 22 feet per second, which is a phenomenal speed. They can cover a ground of probably 100 yards in a very, very short space of time. But if they have to go further than that, generally they let go and they fail. They are not long distance sprinters. They can only try and sneak up on animals using their camouflage and their stealth and their very carefully put feet until they get as close as they possibly can, and then they have a very strong burst of energy out the blocks, but that is quickly lost if they don't manage to catch up to the animal in time. And that's why it's important for a lot of your herbivore animals to have very good hearing, to have camouflage, to stay in groups where they can be safe and where they can protect each other or keep their eyes open, because you never know when a lion is lurking and trying to get close to you. So if you ever go walking in thick bush, thick vegetation, always try to keep to the clearing so that you can avoid that surprise attack of a lion lurking in the shadows. Dakari, a very good question from you about how long do lions sleep. The debate is on, and a lot of people think lions maybe sleep less or more than they do. Lions probably sleep 20 to 22 hours a day, depending on their activity and depending on if they feed. That is a very, very low energy budget that they are exuding there. They feed on a very high protein diet. They eat meat and meat exclusively, and when they gorge themselves, fill their bellies to almost popping. I think some of us can only relate to something like that when we have a Christmas feast, but we have no idea how that must feel when you've got 30-odd or 60-odd pounds in your belly. But they will sleep for a huge amount of the day, and if it's hot, they will spend the entire day sleeping, and even most of the night. It all really depends on how hungry they are. If they're thirsty, they might move around. They also do spend quite a bit of time grooming and looking after themselves, but 20-odd hours is probably about the average. So we've had a wonderful day. The sun is starting to set. We've had rain. we've had drama, we've had lions, and we're going to link you back to James. There's a little bit of an update for you that side, so we'll catch up with you shortly. Enjoy.
We are very lucky to have a sunset, everybody. We didn't think we were going to have a sunset, given how bad the weather was earlier today. But I got to tell you, one of the most special things you will ever see is an African sunset. And as I've said to lots of kids before, I hope one day that you will all African sunset on your own, because really it's one of the things I think that all people should be lucky enough to do. You can hear some frogs in the background. Quack, 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 quack. You can see the clouds moving quite fast across the sky now. They're coming from the south. They're just moving from the south and along like that. And we've got the beautiful colours all around. You can also see, of course, or you have seen during the course of the day, that it is very green here. And it's so green, of course, because we're sitting in the summertime. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Let's carry on. Ooh! Before I answer Fayley's question, there's a tawny eagle on the ground here. That's very special. Can you see him there? Fayley, you're wondering what the temperature is. I'd say it's probably about 19 degrees centigrade, which is around about 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's a tawny eagle. Huge bird. Probably stands, I'll check exactly how big it is, but almost 2 feet tall. And what he's doing is looking for termites to eat. So sometimes these eagles eat bigger things like lizards and mice and squirrels, or as you say in America, squirrels. But this one I think is looking for termites, and I just want to tell exactly how big he is because he's a lovely big bird. You can see him walking as he looks for what he's trying to catch. And the reason I know he's a tawny eagle, tawny of course is a kind of like a brown colour, well we can see that, but also you can see he's got much darker wings than the rest of his body. Yeah, he's just over 2 feet tall actually. 71 centimetres. Isn't he lovely? I don't think he can find what he wants, and you might just be able to hear in the background, quack, 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 the sound of the crowned lapwing, which is another bird, and he's not happy because this bird here will eat the chicks of the crowned lapwing if he can get them. Maybe that's what he's looking for. Alrighty, for your last few minutes we're going to send you back, of course, to the beautiful lions and Steve.
Well, you're back with us, folks, and not too much has changed. The individual lion that we were looking at before has done a fair bit more grooming. He's now trying to focus on the head by licking the paw and then wiping the face. It's something that you've probably seen domestic cats doing, and all your solitary cats do it. It's their only form of cleaning the face, but lions do it too. But they'll often do it as a unit, so they can help each other. A question from Evelyn: how many baby animals live here? It's very hard to say, Evelyn. We do have the breeding season now, so the impala are all lambing, the wildebeest are all lambing. I'm pretty sure all the squirrels and the birds and all the little mice and all of that are also having babies. So the number would probably be a lot more at the moment than there were a couple months ago. And that is the season. You know, lions and leopards don't have a season for babies, but all the other animals enjoy our summer. I know for those of you joining us for the Northern Hemisphere, it's your winter there. It's completely opposite for us here. And we have lots of babies. This is one of the wonderful times of year to come and see baby animals. So if you ever do want to come to the bush and see baby animals, this is the time. So folks, we're going to be wrapping up this afternoon's drive. The sun is setting in the background. We have the Styx cubs lying underneath the bush here. What can we say? They are not doing too much. But we will be joining you tomorrow morning, live for Safari. Thank you to FC, thank you to the viewers, thank you to Corporate Landing Elementary for joining us this afternoon. I hope you've learned a lot, and thank you for your questions. We'll be back on live tomorrow morning. Myself, I'm pretty sure, will be driving, and nice to have you out this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we'll be sending you off and chat to you tomorrow. Thank you very much.